Well, the topic may look a little bit complex, but it is really not. There is a term authenticity, which can mean, identity of the species, and also the legality of the source, or whether the timber is legal or illegal. So when we think about this particular topic, especially looking at the state of affairs in timber trade globally and also in our country, uh, there is an importance for this case, that is the forest certification. Most of you know what is forest certification, what are the important schemes of certification. But still, I will just give a very brief, definitions of the words I will be using. Uh, Certification is defined as a written assurance that you conform to a particular standard in case of a service or goods that we offer. And forest certification is actually a mechanism of tracing, monitoring, and labeling timber, both wood and wood pulp products and non-timber forest products, where the quality of management of the forest is judged against environmental, social, and economic perspectives, uh, conforming to certain agreed standards. History also, most of you may be knowing how forest certification has evolved over time. And one of the international seminars organized a few decades back in IWST, I still remember Wood is Good meeting. This forest certification was the topic given to me for presentation. And one of the foreigner who met me after the talk asked me whether India is exporting any timber. Then I said I doubt, because what we export will be mostly wooden handicrafts. And he said then there's no meaning in certification. But now a time has come when we have to think the other way, because I'll come to the point which I raised just now. Over time, the focus initially on certification was on the tropical forest, where we had the Tropical Forest Action Plan, then the emergence of ITTO in Japan, Yokohama, then also later the UNCED, United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, 1992, brought temperate and boreal forests along with tropical forests on the agenda. So certification caught up mainly in the temperate regions and boreal forests than in the tropical forests, as was initially envisaged. And certification definitely is a tool for reducing deforestation and promoting sustainable forest management. Several schemes are in operation. I may not mention anything about FSC. Most of you know, the Canadian Woods promoted by Dr. Jimmy, my good friend. The Canada 70% is covered by one scheme, and I'm not advocating any particular scheme of certification, and the rest is also certified by another formidable certification scheme. The major one being FSC and the PEFC. There are country-specific standards also, which are listed in the slide. You know, FSC, although it was founded in 1993 with the headquarters in Bonn, Germany, what it aimed was to certify forest producers for SFM, that is for Sustainable Forest Management. And they have a 10 set of principles, and for those principles there are 56 criteria on the basis of SFF definition. They are both ecological, environmental, and social perspectives the principles are based on. We also in India initiated the Bhopal India process way back in the 1990s. In IAFM, everybody know, we call that as the criterion indicators, which also is very similar to principles and criteria that the FSC is talking about. And FSC also started promoting national standards for interpreting this PNC. India has started recently, but it has not taken off much in our country. And this is done through a nationally set up standards development group. And there are two parts of forest certification, as some of you are accustomed with forest certification know that there is forest management unit certification, which is the major part of the forest certification process. And then the chain of custody certification, which we call as the COC. The earlier one is called as the FMU. And then you have the certification of control. What you mean by FMU is that, you evaluate the forest management operations of your forest against an accepted forest management standard, to see that whatever product that comes out of that particular patch of forest or unit is is out of a sustainably managed mechanism. Even you can forest certify a rubber plantation, then the latex is also automatically covered under FMU certification. Then for us timber people, the COC is more important because it is dealing with the entire chain of custody. Starting from FMU unit, we'll go through several stages, and in COC, you can evaluate a particular legal entity or an individual. It can be any of the forest product selling company, a pulp-based industry, any kind of shops that sell wood or wood-based products. That COC, by getting COC, it is ensured that at any process of handling, the material is not coming from unmanaged, not FMU or non-FMU based forests. So that in fact it's a very less costly affair, because this is actually third-party certification we are talking. So we're talking about now process certification. We do this by stages. These are the stages already shown. First, the company makes an initial contact. Then there's evaluation by the company and what we call as the CBs, the certification bodies, and the adaptation of the practices by the client. Then there's a certification of the operations, and then there will be more annual monitoring for that. Well, talking about the topic that I'm going to discuss today, we have a global increase in global international trade in timber, because many of the countries like India and China are becoming more and more developed, and they are growing economies, and this has resulted in intensified international trade, and has accelerated the global timber harvest and flows of timber, and this has serious consequences on the climate and environmental problems. But we have not fully grasped with the impact of international trade in global timber, including the global timber harvest caused by final consumption of nations, because that we call as the timber harvest footprint, final consumption. If you look at the developed nations, for example, Germany and Japan, they have largely exceeded their direct timber harvest. The timber harvest footprints of these nations have largely exceeded their timber harvest, which means that they are not harvesting or exploiting their forests too much, but they're importing much of the timber from other nations. But whereas if you look at lesser developed countries in South America, including Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, and so on, and countries in Africa like Cameroon, Congo, Ghana, and also the Gabon, their direct timber harvest is much larger than the timber harvest footprint, which means that they're not consuming much of the timber harvested in their nation, but they are in fact exporting this timber to other countries. Again, these are going to the much developed economies like what I mentioned, like Germany, Europe, or US, for example. Then regarding our country, India, we have we are seeing a gradual increase in the timber harvest footprint starting from 1990 to 2015, with an annual growth rate of 0.5% and 0.4% respectively, which again means that we are not we are again importing timber from poorer countries which are having more of timber footprints on their nation, like I already mentioned about Brazil and countries in Africa. The developing nations, again, the poorer countries are mostly net exporters of the timber embodied in international trade. That we call as the virtual timber. And the destination of these virtual timber flows are mainly going again to the countries which are richer, which have got abundant forest resources, for example, US, Japan, Germany. So it's very important that we identify the critical nations that directly or indirectly drive global timber harvest through global supply chains. In our case, India, as far as India is concerned, the critical nations have already been identified. Two are, one is Brazil and the other is, I've already mentioned here, the